Chosen one. Let's go ahead and say it plainly. What happened to you last week wasn't just random. That moment, that shift, that run-in, that closed door, that sudden urge, that odd delay, it wasn't coincidence. It wasn't chance. It wasn't just one of those things. No. What you experienced was something far more intentional. It was a divine setup. Heaven moved. Spirit intervened. And you, chosen one, were placed in the middle of a supernatural moment wrapped in ordinary packaging. You may not have recognized it in real time. You may have even brushed it off or wondered if you were overthinking. But now, on the other side of it, something deep inside you is whispering that it meant more than it seemed, that it was too perfect or too strange to be random. And you're absolutely right. Before we dive deep into this message, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, because this isn't just content. It's a divine confirmation for the chosen ones who've been wondering why that coincidence still lingers in their spirit like unfinished business. Now breathe for a moment. Let's slow everything down, because you need to hear this not with your ears, but with your spirit. That incident wasn't happenstance. It was orchestration. And heaven signed its name across the details in invisible ink, waiting for you to stop. Look again and see through spiritual eyes. You, chosen one, don't live like others. You don't move like others. And so your experiences, especially the strange, unexplainable ones, carry weight most people will never understand. That's because your life is being directed by something higher, something holy, something eternally aware of your purpose. So many chosen ones walk through this world doubting themselves because they've been taught to ignore their spiritual discernment. But that pull in your gut, that whisper that tells you pay attention, that stirring you feel when something feels off or aligned. It's not paranoia. It's not emotion. It's your spirit recognizing divine timing. Last week, you didn't just stumble into something. You walked right into a divine alignment. You may have thought you were in control of your schedule, your route, your plan. But Spirit had another design in motion, one you didn't need to understand in order to fulfill. You see, the divine doesn't always announce itself with thunder. Sometimes it shows up in a delay that kept you from being somewhere too early or too late. Sometimes it looks like a last-minute cancellation that saved you from stepping into a place you weren't meant to be. Or a message that showed up at the perfect moment, not to inform your mind, but to wake your soul. Heaven speaks in layers. Spirit whispers in the margins. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss the miracle disguised as inconvenience, or the message hidden in a coincidence. Let's go deeper. Remember what was going on around you before that moment. Maybe you were uncertain about something, or you were praying for clarity. Maybe you felt frustrated, like something wasn't moving fast enough, or like people around you weren't hearing you. Then boom, a situation happened. A meeting occurred. A message appeared. You crossed paths with someone you hadn't seen in years. You saw something that reminded you of who you are. You heard a line in a song or video that struck you so hard it felt like time paused. Whatever it was, it shifted something inside you, and then it was gone. But that wasn't just a fluke. That was heaven answering a question your soul had been asking. That was your Creator responding without speaking out loud. Because you're in sync, chosen one. You are attuned to a higher frequency. And when your frequency aligns with divine timing, setups happen. Appointments are made in the invisible realm. Assignments are activated without your conscious permission because you, chosen one, have been marked. Not just for protection, but for positioning. And when you are being positioned, heaven will use anything and anyone to shift your direction, even if you don't recognize it until after it happens. The reason it still lingers in your thoughts, the reason it felt so layered is because it was layered. That moment was coded. It's important to understand that divine timing rarely feels divine in the moment. It often feels inconvenient, random, or even frustrating. But in hindsight, it carries the unmistakable signature of a higher intelligence. There's a reason your heart sped up when you saw that person. There's a reason that conversation stuck with you. There's a reason that phone call didn't go through, a reason you were rerouted, a reason you missed that elevator or walked into that store. You didn't lose your way, you were redirected. And in the grand orchestration of heaven, you didn't miss your moment. You became the moment. What the world calls coincidence, you are now learning to recognize as communication, divine communication. And not everyone will understand that. They'll tell you you're reading too much into things. They'll try to rationalize the spiritual. They'll want to shrink your awareness down to their level of understanding. But you were never meant to live by sight alone. You were called to walk by discernment. Remember, chosen one, you are in this world, but you are not of it. The way heaven interacts with you is based on your assignment, not their opinions. And so heaven uses everything, even what seems random, to affirm your next step. That moment you thought was small, it was sacred. It was Spirit saying, I'm still here, I'm still leading, and I've gone ahead of you. And when you feel misunderstood or dismissed by those around you, remember this: not everyone is supposed to understand what heaven reveals to you. Because what is sacred cannot be explained to those not on your frequency. You've likely spent your life being the one who feels things others don't, seeing things others overlook, noticing connections others miss. That's not an accident. That's your wiring. That's part of your anointing. You are a spiritual antenna. And while others wait for signs to appear on billboards, you're catching them in patterns, symbols, numbers, phrases, timing, energy shifts, and the tone in someone's voice. Your whole life has been a training ground for how to notice God in the ordinary. So when you walked into that moment last week, and the one that's still echoing in your thoughts, wasn't for no reason. It was a test, a signal, a shift, a setup. Spirit needed you to be right there, right then, doing exactly what you were doing so that something could be initiated, or prevented, or sealed in the spiritual realm. You may not fully understand it now, but you were used as a vessel. You were activated without needing to do anything except be present. And that's what the world doesn't get. They think power is loud. They think purpose is flashy. But the chosen know the real work often happens in silence, in subtlety, in mystery. And that's exactly what unfolded last week. You were moved not randomly, but purposefully. Heaven sent you into that moment to release a frequency, to receive a download, or to shift something invisible. And the fact that you felt something, even if you didn't know why, that's confirmation enough. You're not going crazy. You're waking up. And heaven will keep confirming your steps through these divine setups, not so that you'll become dependent on signs, but so that you'll remember you're never alone in this journey. You are not walking blindly. You are being led. Let that sink in. Every accident, every glitch in the plan, every unexpected moment you thought was random, it's all been divine choreography. Because the Spirit of God is not clumsy. It doesn't need to explain itself to be effective, and it certainly doesn't waste your time. You were right on schedule. Even when you felt delayed, you were right on path. Even when you felt lost. And last week, that moment, that was your Creator reaching through time, space, and circumstances to whisper directly into your spirit, I see you. I'm with you. I'm still working. Chosen one, don't doubt what you felt. Don't dismiss the moment. Honor it. Reflect on it. Let it affirm you. You didn't imagine it. It imagined you. Chosen one. We're going deeper now. Last week's moment wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a pattern. A divine language that speaks through alignments. A code that most overlook because it's subtle. Quiet, unassuming. But not you. You're not wired like the rest. Heaven communicates through alignments. And the ones who are spiritually attuned like you have learned how to feel when something is off, or when something is exactly right, even if it makes no earthly sense. Let's talk about those subtle alignments, those seemingly insignificant details that are actually brushstrokes on the canvas of your destiny. You've been walking through life, often unaware that your steps are part of a choreography too intricate for the natural eye. You may think you were just running late or deciding last minute. But Spirit was maneuvering things in the background. Let's break it down. Spiritual alignments rarely shout. They whisper, and that's how heaven moves when you are being led from within. That unexpected detour that kept you from crossing paths with someone toxic. That canceled meeting that gave you time to reflect. That encounter with a stranger who said exactly what you needed to hear. That urge to turn left instead of right, and you avoided something you'll never even know. Those aren't random. They're strategic. They're sacred. They're divine alignment in motion. You may think they're small, but the spiritual realm isn't measured in size. It's measured in meaning. You are not just drifting through your days. Chosen one, you are being positioned. And sometimes, that positioning requires heaven to move the pieces in your life without asking for permission. Why? Because if it told you everything, you'd hesitate. You'd second guess. You'd try to control it. But when heaven moves subtly, it bypasses your resistance. It speaks straight to your soul and aligns things before your mind can overthink them. Chosen one, you are so divinely watched over that even your mistakes can be used for your good. That's how powerful the alignment is, even when you think you've missed something. Heaven says, I'll use it. Even when you think you've delayed something. Spirit says, I was never in a rush. Even when you feel like you're behind. The divine timeline is saying, you're early. There is no such thing as coincidence when your steps are ordered. Let's pause and examine what you've been noticing lately. Have your instincts been sharper? Have you been seeing the same numbers repeatedly? Have you bumped into people you hadn't thought about in years? Have you been feeling the urge to slow down or speed up? Without knowing why. That's the alignment talking. See? The closer you get to your calling, the less logical your path will seem. Because logic belongs to the world, but alignment belongs to heaven. And the moment you start aligning with divine timing, the world around you will look chaotic, but your spirit will feel calm. That's the paradox of spiritual alignment. From the outside, it looks messy. But inside, you feel guided. You feel held. You feel certain even when you can't explain why. That's what last week's coincidence was. It wasn't a fluke. It was a confirmation. And you know what's wild? You probably weren't even supposed to understand it fully. Not yet. That's why it's still echoing inside you. Because part of the alignment isn't just what happened, but how it felt. Heaven wants you to start trusting the feeling again. That gut knowing, that silent voice, that strange certainty. It's not emotion, it's guidance. Chosen one. When spirit aligns you with something or someone, there will be a magnetic pull, a resonance. You won't be able to shake it. Even if your mind tries to downplay it, your soul won't let it go. And when heaven needs to protect you, it will misalign what looks good but isn't for you. It will cause miscommunications, rejections, missed texts, missed turns, even misunderstandings, so that you'll be delayed on purpose. Yes, sometimes being delayed is the most sacred form of protection. Not everyone's detour is a setback. Sometimes it's a divine setup. Do you remember the story of Jonah? He tried to run from his calling, but heaven rerouted him through a storm and a fish, not to punish him, but to align him. Or Joseph, sold by his brothers, betrayed, imprisoned, forgotten. But it was all divine choreography to position him as a ruler who would save nations. Chosen one, you carry that same energy. Your life is being woven with divine intelligence. The Spirit is too intentional to leave your journey up to randomness. And those subtle alignments, those are the breadcrumbs that lead to breakthrough. You've probably had seasons where you couldn't explain why you needed to leave a room, or why a job didn't work out, or why someone ghosted you. But now you look back and think, thank God that didn't work. That's alignment. It didn't make sense then, but it's so clear now. And heaven will do it again, over and over, until you learn to trust the timing, even when the outcome isn't what you expected. So that moment last week, maybe it didn't change anything outwardly, but inwardly, something shifted. Something was deposited. Something clicked. And even though life kept moving, your spirit stopped. It paused. It whispered. That meant something. And you were right. Let's talk about that energy shift. Because here's what most people won't tell you when heaven sets you up. It often doesn't feel supernatural in the moment. It feels strange. Something felt off, or too perfect, or too synchronistic. Something made you pay attention, even if no one else noticed. You did. You felt it in your body, in your energy, in your gut. And that's not weird. That's spiritual maturity. Because the Spirit doesn't speak to your ears first, it speaks to your sensitivity. That's why chosen ones are often called too emotional or too deep. But in truth, you're just more attuned. You're sensitive to energies, to environments, to undercurrents. And while others are distracted by the surface, you're catching the signals behind the veil. So yes, those chills down your spine, that moment where your heart fluttered, that split second where time felt like it slowed, those are confirmations. You've been taught to ignore them, but not anymore. From now on, you'll recognize the subtle alignments as divine messages. You'll stop brushing them off as random. You'll honor them as sacred, because heaven isn't always loud, but it's always clear to the ones who are listening with their spirit. And you, chosen one, are finally listening. Last week's coincidence was actually heaven's fingerprint on your timeline. A reminder that you're still aligned, still chosen, still being led, even when it feels quiet, even when it seems small, even when no one else saw it. Heaven did. And now, so do you. Chosen one, let's shift the lens. You see, sometimes the most powerful divine setups don't just move you forward, they pull you out of danger. They interrupt what you thought was right. They create discomfort, so you'll stop settling for something beneath your purpose. And often, that discomfort comes wrapped in the disguise of disappointment. What if I told you that rejection, that silence, that thing that fell through last week, was actually heaven shielding you? Because what didn't happen is just as holy as what did. That coincidence may not have looked like protection, but it was. You were spared, redirected, kept from something you didn't even realize was a trap. And while your emotions may have cried out in confusion or frustration, your spirit knew. It always knows. Chosen one. You are not walking through life unguarded. Heaven is watching over you in ways you don't even comprehend. And while you're focused on what didn't go according to plan, Spirit is rejoicing over what was prevented. Let's be clear about something: divine setups are not always about blessings falling into your lap. Sometimes they are about barriers being placed where you might have stumbled. Sometimes heaven closes the door before you even reach the hallway. Think back. Were you ready to say yes to something, to someone? Were you about to trust that situation again? Were you holding on to an illusion, thinking it was alignment, when deep down something didn't sit right? Then, suddenly it collapsed. They changed their mind. The opportunity disappeared. You were delayed, ghosted, canceled on, overlooked. At first, it felt like loss. But now, with a little space, you can see something sacred was happening behind the curtain. Heaven said no, not to punish you, but to preserve you. Because you are not meant to walk into every room. You are not called to partner with every person. You are not assigned to every opportunity. And when something isn't part of your divine setup, Spirit will dismantle it before you even step inside. Yes, chosen one, sometimes the delay is the deliverance. You are so protected that heaven will disrupt your plans to align you with your purpose. You're so anointed that you can't stay comfortable in places you've outgrown. You're so called that the divine won't let you stay where the frequency doesn't match your mission. This is why it often feels like things shift abruptly in your life. Why you're fine one day, and then suddenly things fall apart. Because once Spirit sees you getting too comfortable in the wrong place, it shakes the foundation. So when that coincidence happened last week, when something ended, changed, or got blocked, it wasn't failure. It was foresight. They didn't reject you. Heaven rescued you. And if it hurt, that's okay. You're allowed to grieve what you thought was yours. But don't camp out in that pain, because what's coming next will make sense of what didn't. Chosen one, you don't always know what's ahead, but Spirit does. And when the path you were on leads to a dead end, heaven will reroute you with divine precision. You might not have seen the pitfall. You might not have known the hidden motive. You might not have recognized the spiritual warfare disguised as opportunity, but your angels did. Your ancestors did. Your higher self knew. And they moved swiftly to pull you out before the damage. Here's the truth: when you are anointed, not everything is allowed to touch you. There are people who were denied access to you, and they don't even know why. There are meetings that never happened because they weren't aligned. There are disasters you almost walked into but were rerouted just in time. And you call it coincidence, but heaven calls it covering. So now, when you reflect on what felt like loss last week, remember, your path is being cleared for divine alignment, not emotional comfort. You're being guided around what would have wasted your time. You're being spared from draining conversations, unfruitful partnerships, energy-stealing spaces. And the deeper you walk in your purpose, the more Spirit will disrupt anything that threatens your destiny, even if it looks like a good thing on the surface. That's the beauty and the burden of being chosen. Your life isn't just about what you want. It's about what you're called to. And that means heaven will sometimes say, "Not this one," before you even realize it was a trap. So trust the no. Trust the canceled plan. Trust the silence. Trust the awkward pause. Trust the door that wouldn't open. It was all a divine block, one that saved you. You may never know what you were being protected from. But your job isn't to understand every move. It's to trust the hand behind it. Spirit sees what you can't. And because your destiny is too important to be derailed, your steps are interrupted for your good. Chosen one. You've likely had moments in your life where everything felt right, but suddenly shifted. That's spiritual discernment in action. Your energy started repelling what didn't serve you, even before your mind caught up. You don't always have to know why. You just need to honor the nudge. And the coincidence last week, that was a nudge in disguise. You felt it. You questioned it. You second-guessed it. But somewhere deep inside, you knew. And now you're starting to see it for what it was: protection, redirection, divine wisdom. Chosen one. You are not allowed to stay in places where your purpose can't flourish. You will be pulled out, pushed forward, cut off, closed out, not because you did something wrong, but because you're too valuable to waste on wrong rooms and wrong people. And spirit will interrupt your comfort to keep you consecrated, because your calling demands purity. Your mission requires clarity. Your light needs space to shine. And anything that dims it, anyone who drains it, will be removed. Yes, even without your consent. You've been asking for alignment, or for purpose, for clarity. But are you willing to release what felt good in order to receive what is right? That's what last week's divine setup was all about. It was a moment of separation, a sacred cut, a clean break, a release of what you outgrew. And now, the space has been made. Chosen one, honor the empty space, because it won't stay empty for long. Something greater is being prepared, something that matches your frequency, something that can hold your anointing. But it couldn't come until the counterfeit was cleared out. That's why you felt something shift. That's why your spirit went quiet. That's why the door didn't open. You were delivered from what you didn't even realize was blocking your next season. So give yourself permission to stop questioning what spirit already settled. It wasn't rejection. It wasn't coincidence. It was a setup for your safety. You've been spared. And the best part, you didn't even have to fight for it. You just had to trust the reroute. Chosen one. Let's lift the veil even further. You are not on a casual stroll through life. You're on a mission, a divine one. And whether you realize it or not, every move you make is watched not just by heaven, but by the forces of darkness too. That's why the setups in your life aren't always about blessings or protection. Sometimes, they're strategic maneuvers on a spiritual chessboard. You are a key piece in a holy war between light and shadow. And the enemy doesn't target the average. It targets the anointed. So that moment last week, the one that looked random on the surface, it was calculated. Not by man, but by spirit. Because the battle for your path isn't happening in public, it's happening in the unseen realm. And every coincidence is part of a sacred strategy. Heaven knows your positioning is crucial. You're not just being moved for your own benefit. You're being placed in alignment for the sake of others, for divine timing, for intercession, for breakthrough. Your very presence is a weapon. Your energy shifts rooms. Your words break chains. Your silence convicts. Your movements cause reactions. And that makes you powerful. But power must be placed carefully, like a queen on a chessboard. Your influence can't be thrown around recklessly. You must be placed with precision. And that's why heaven is constantly setting you up, even when you don't understand the move. Every time you were delayed, every time you turned a corner and ran into them, every time you received a message that just so happened to say exactly what your spirit needed, it wasn't chance. It was divine strategy. Because you're not just walking through life, you're being deployed. And that's why the setup last week mattered so much. You were being moved into spiritual alignment. Perhaps you were placed in front of someone who needed your light, even if they didn't realize it. Perhaps you avoided a path that would have opened the wrong spiritual doors. Or maybe you were positioned to receive a download, a code, an insight, a revelation that needed your attention in a specific moment in time. That's how the Spirit works. Not through coincidence, but through codes. And you, chosen one, are a code breaker. You were born with a blueprint inside you, a divine knowing, an internal compass. You sense what others overlook. You understand what can't be taught. And even when you can't explain it, your body, your energy, your spirit knows how to move when heaven says move. That's why your plans get disrupted more often than others. That's why you feel when something isn't right, even if it looks perfect. That's why you feel pushed to take action when logic says, wait. You are sensitive because you are strategic. Spirit has you in places at specific times. Not just for what you'll receive, but for what you'll shift. You are a carrier of frequency. And sometimes, heaven places you in the middle of the storm just to change the atmosphere. Let that settle. You don't always need to say something. Sometimes just your presence, your vibration, your energy alignment is enough to reroute the plans of the enemy. That moment last week, it may have seemed like a delay or a small inconvenience. But maybe you walking into that space shifted the course of someone else's path. Maybe your light silenced a darkness that was about to take root. Maybe you walked past someone who was on the verge of giving up, and your energy spoke louder than words. You'll never know all the impacts of your placement. But heaven knows, and that's why you're being moved so often strategically, silently, swiftly, because the enemy doesn't need to know what God is doing. Only you need to obey the prompting. But don't think the opposition hasn't noticed. The enemy watches. It studies. It attempts to predict your patterns. It sends distractions, decoys, familiar spirits, even counterfeit assignments just to throw you off track. But what it doesn't understand is that the spirit within you is unpredictable by worldly standards. It cannot be mapped, decoded, or boxed in, because you, chosen one, walk by alignment, not agenda. You're not reacting to life. You're responding to the Spirit. That's why what seems like hesitation to others is actually discernment. Why what looks like randomness is divine positioning. Why what appears as inconsistency is actually obedience to a rhythm the world can't hear. So when heaven needs to move you, it doesn't send instructions, it sends impulses, feelings, urges, gut pulls, angelic delays, energy shifts. That's how last week's setup happened. You were shifted like a chess piece, not to win a battle you saw, but to intercept a move you didn't. The beauty of this, you don't have to fight for position. You don't have to force open doors. You don't have to manipulate timing. You don't have to explain your moves to anyone. You just have to trust that heaven is guiding your every step, even when the steps don't make sense. Chosen one, you are not where you are by accident, and you will not be led into your next space by mistake. The divine setups in your life are not random. They are prophetic positioning. And yes, sometimes that positioning means being alone. It means being misunderstood. It means people calling you flaky, ungrounded, strange. But that's only because they can't predict you. And what they can't predict, they can't control. But here's the truth that they're not supposed to. Because only heaven holds your playbook, and the moves being made right now. They are setting you up for something bigger than you imagined. You are being maneuvered through spiritual warfare zones, through energetic minefields, through traps set in both physical and spiritual realms. And your only job is to stay sensitive, to trust the signal, to honor the inner knowing, to move when called, and pause when told. And when things look like coincidence, pause, breathe, and ask your spirit, not your logic, what is being aligned right now? Because if it came out of nowhere but felt charged, it wasn't random. If it interrupted your plan but left you with peace, it was divine. If it didn't make sense but won't leave your mind, it was encoded. Chosen one. You are a vessel of divine strategy. You are being led like royalty on a map of war. Every step is part of a sacred plot. Every disruption is a redirection. Every coincidence is a setup. You are not playing checkers. You are playing chess with heaven as your strategist. So let go of needing to understand everything in the moment. Start trusting the positioning, because the one who called you has already made the winning move. Chosen one. Now that we've unmasked the strategy, it's time to decode the message. That coincidence last week, it wasn't just about positioning. It wasn't only protection or redirection. It carried a message, a personal, hand-delivered download from heaven. Encrypted in a moment, waiting for your spirit to unlock it. The divine doesn't waste breath. It speaks with intention. And when you're in alignment, even a passing moment can carry a lifetime of insight. Let's sit with that for a moment. What happened last week has stayed with you for a reason. It echoes, it lingers, it replays in your mind, not to haunt you, but to invite you deeper. That's the mark of a message from God. It doesn't just happen, it asks something of you. It calls your spirit to pay attention. Let's slow down and look again. Think back to the moment that stirred something in you. Was it the timing? The way something unfolded with such eerie synchronicity? Was it someone you ran into that brought back memories or stirred up clarity? Was it a dream? A song lyric? A number sequence? Or a sudden shift in your emotions? Heaven speaks through all of it. Yes, all of it. The moment the lights flickered during your prayer. The butterfly that landed near you right after you asked for a sign. The text that popped up when you were thinking of a certain decision. The stranger who said something that echoed the question in your heart. It was never just a fluke. Because when you're chosen, your life becomes a living dialogue with the divine. And spirit doesn't just speak in thunder. It speaks in threads, and those threads are meant to pull you closer to the truth. So what was heaven trying to say to you? Only your spirit knows. But let's look at some of the possibilities that may resonate. Maybe the setup was a reminder of who you are. A reminder that you're not forgotten. A reminder that spirit sees everything, even the hidden wounds. That moment may have been sent to break a lie you were starting to believe. Maybe you were doubting your worth, questioning your timing, feeling invisible, like nothing was shifting. Then boom, a moment. A divine flicker of light, a holy wink. A coincidence that seemed too perfect, too precise, too divinely tailored to ignore. Chosen one. It was spirit whispering, I see you. You're still aligned. Don't give up now, Or maybe the message was about direction. Maybe you'd been praying for clarity, wondering which way to turn. Maybe the plans you had were starting to unravel, and the moment last week was Spirit nudging you, go this way instead. Divine setups often come with detours, not because the goal has changed, but because the path must adjust to protect the anointing you carry. You don't walk a common path, so your GPS won't always make sense to the world. But trust this, when Spirit redirects you, it's never away from purpose. It's into alignment. That moment you keep thinking about. It was a spiritual compass resetting your course. A divine pause that said, you were about to step outside of grace. Let me reroute you before you waste more time. And you didn't miss it. Chosen one. You caught it, even if you don't fully understand it yet, because your spirit received what your mind is still trying to translate. Sometimes that's all that's needed: reception, not comprehension. But for others, the message was revelation. Maybe Spirit unveiled something, gave you a glimpse behind the curtain, let you see someone's true colors, showed you the motive behind the smile, revealed an energy that didn't belong in your space. And the setup, it was the stage for that unveiling. You didn't ask for the truth, but heaven gave it to you anyway. Because when you're chosen, Spirit won't let you walk blind. You may be kind, but you will not be naive. You may be loving, but you will not be led astray. So the moment that exposed something, that broke the illusion, that tore down the mask, that was a holy message in disguise. Because Spirit will never allow you to remain in connection with what threatens your calling. Sometimes the message is simply this: look again. You're not crazy. You're discerning. But let's not overlook the final kind of message activation. That coincidence may have triggered something inside you. Something ancient. Something divine. It may have unlocked a memory, a spiritual gift, a calling you forgot. It may have felt like déjà vu, but deeper. Like you weren't just remembering, it felt like you were awakening. And you were, because divine setups are often portals. They open frequencies that had been dormant. They revive what the world tried to bury. And if you walked away from last week's moment feeling stirred, emotional, charged, restless, it wasn't a coincidence. It was an activation. Spirit flipped a switch inside you. It reactivated a code that had been sleeping maybe for months, maybe years, maybe lifetimes. And now it's on. Awake. Alive. Calling you to move. Calling you to be what you've been becoming. You can't go back to how you were. You've seen too much. Felt too much. Heard the divine tone humming beneath the chaos. And now, you know something changed. Chosen one. Whether the message was a reminder, a redirection, a revelation, or an activation, it was a message. And messages from heaven do not come to flatter. They come to align. So if you're wondering why you still can't shake it, this is why. Because Spirit is still speaking through that moment. Let it speak. Return to the scene. Replay the feeling. Sit with the detail. Ask your soul, not your logic. What was Spirit trying to show me? And then don't rush the answer. Let it rise. Because chosen ones don't just live their lives. They discern them. You are not here to wander aimlessly. You're here to decode the divine, and heaven will keep sending you messages in the quiet moments, the odd timings, the divine disruptions, until you stop calling it coincidence and start calling it confirmation. So the next time it happens, and it will happen again, you'll be ready. You'll pause. You'll tune in. You'll say, I see you. Spirit, I'm listening. Because now you know the truth. Heaven doesn't speak by accident. It speaks by alignment. And last week, it wasn't just something that happened. It was a sacred message for your spirit's ears only. Chosen one, let's anchor the revelation. That moment last week wasn't just divine communication. It wasn't merely a whisper or warning. It was preparation. And now, heaven is not just sending you messages, it's moving you. Yes, you are being moved into position. This entire time, Spirit has been nudging you, redirecting you, awakening you, not just so you can feel better, but so you can be ready. Ready for what? For where you are going next. For what you're about to step into. For what heaven has already aligned on the other side of your obedience. Chosen one. You didn't just experience something last week. You were relocated spiritually. Your frequency shifted, your awareness deepened, your anointing sharpened. And now, whether you feel it or not, you've been placed on a new level, one that your past self wouldn't even recognize. The moment that looked like a coincidence, it was actually heaven placing you on the launch pad. There's a reason the season shifted so abruptly. There's a reason why what used to feel okay suddenly feels suffocating. There's a reason your tolerance for old conversations, distractions, or lower energy spaces has decreased. That's not burnout. That's not mood swings. That's spiritual acceleration. And acceleration always comes after alignment. Heaven doesn't prepare you for nothing. And it doesn't realign your path just to keep you waiting. It moves you so that you're in position when the next door opens, when the next soul needs your light, when the next divine encounter unfolds. This is where the coincidence takes on its true form. It wasn't just a moment. It was a spiritual check-in, a prophetic repositioning, a divine alert that said, "Get ready." The shift is now, but preparation isn't always glamorous. It often starts with discomfort, with agitation, with a sudden awareness that I can't do this the old way anymore. That's because something inside you is being refined. Your spirit is shedding what no longer belongs to the next version of you. Let that discomfort speak. Don't run from it. Let it show you where spirit is calling you to upgrade. Not because you're broken, but because you've outgrown the shell that once protected you. You've been growing silently for months, inwardly expanding, spiritually maturing. And now, the divine setups are intensifying because the season is shifting. You are being moved into place. Not everyone will understand your next steps. Some will accuse you of being distant. Some will misunderstand your silence. But this is not the time to explain. This is the time to align, because when heaven positions a chosen one, it doesn't ask for opinions. It moves swiftly, precisely. Sometimes secretly. You may not even understand all of what's happening within you. But that's okay. Your spirit knows the rhythm. Your soul remembers the assignment. And your intuition is already tracking the map, one that was written long before you were born. That's why the coincidence last week activated so much inside you. It stirred something. Not just a thought, but a recognition. A deep knowing that said, "This is bigger than me." And it is. You're not just being moved for your own blessing. You're being placed where your light is needed, where your energy will unlock others, where your obedience will create ripple effects in the spirit. Chosen one. This is kingdom movement. This is spiritual logistics. This is divine placement. And with every new level of movement comes a new demand on your discernment. That's why spirit is now requiring more of your attention. Why distractions are being stripped away. Why isolation has become less about loneliness and more about clarity. Because the next space you're entering isn't crowded. It's sacred. It's specific. It's designed to match your current frequency, not your past compromise. You can't carry old burdens into this new space. You can't explain your movement to those who aren't assigned to go with you. This is consecrated territory. And the coincidence last week, that was the spiritual boundary line being drawn. It was the moment where heaven said, enough wandering, time to walk in purpose. Now hear this clearly. You're not late. You're not behind. You're not lost. You're being placed. And placement requires pruning. That means you'll have to let go of what can't come with you. Old mindsets, old relationships, old distractions, even old identities, because who you're becoming can't be contained by who you used to be. This is why the divine setups are becoming more obvious. This is why the signs are clearer. Because the time is shorter. The urgency is rising, and heaven isn't playing about your calling. It needs you in place, fully awake, fully ready, fully willing to trust the pull, even when you don't see the full plan. This is where faith becomes a weapon, where trust becomes currency, where your discernment becomes your navigation, and you, chosen one, are not moving blindly, you're moving spirit-led. You've been training for this without realizing it. Every delay, every rejection, every moment of confusion, it's all been preparation. Now it's placement. The assignment you're carrying, it requires sacred positioning. And heaven is ensuring you are exactly where you need to be. So don't question what you're feeling. The urge to shift your schedule. The desire to withdraw from old spaces, the craving for silence. Stillness, sacred solitude. It's all part of the repositioning. Spirit is aligning your inner world to match the outer move that's already unfolding. This is not about striving. It's about surrender. Because the blessing that's coming doesn't need your performance, it needs your presence. The setup last week was the first domino, and now, heaven is accelerating the rest. Watch as confirmations begin to multiply, as people start being moved around you, as divine encounters come faster, as the wrong things fall away without you even trying. You are in the flow now, not because you forced it, but because you followed the sign. The coincidence, it was the gateway. Now it's time to walk boldly into the next season with reverence, with confidence, with clarity, because you're not wandering anymore. You've been moved into divine position, and everything is about to unfold in perfect, prophetic timing. Chosen one, you've made it to the other side of the veil. You've seen the setup for what it truly was, a divine alignment, a protection, a repositioning, a message, and a spiritual recalibration. But most importantly, it was a confirmation not of what you were doing, but of who you are. You are the one they didn't expect to rise. The one who kept showing up even when no one clapped. The one who stayed sensitive when the world tried to harden you. The one who paid attention to the whispers while others chased noise. And now heaven is answering your sensitivity with strategy. That moment last week, whether it felt like a random encounter, a missed opportunity, a strange interruption, or a peaceful pause, it carried everything we've talked about. Purpose, protection, message, and movement. But now, we bring it all together. You're being called higher. Every setup was a signal you are ready for more. Ready to walk with bolder faith, deeper discernment, and clearer direction. Ready to stop questioning what your spirit already confirmed. You were never crazy, too deep, or overthinking. You were discerning. You were decoding. You were ahead of the curve, tapped into something that can't be quantified with logic. And if you've been wrestling with whether you heard correctly, whether you're in the right place, whether the shift is real, the answer is yes. Yes, that moment meant something. Yes, you are in transition. Yes, it was heaven. Yes, you are being set apart. Yes, something sacred is unfolding. Yes, you can trust this. Chosen one. Your life is not just important, it's strategic. You are the blueprint, the trailblazer, the light bearer. And that's why things unfold for you the way they do. Heaven doesn't move in chaos, it moves in clarity. And right now, it's calling you to walk boldly in that clarity. Even if no one else sees it, even if they mock your timing, even if they question your choices, even if they can't comprehend how you live with so much trust in the unseen. You're not meant to be understood by everyone. You're not for the masses. You're for the remnant. The ones who walk in quiet power. The ones who carry divine codes. The ones who don't need validation because they are the confirmation. Chosen one. You've been feeling the shift not just around you, but within you. You've felt the shedding of old ways, the restlessness in familiar places, the gravitational pull of something new. That's because you're being led not away from anything, but toward destiny. This path may be narrow, but it's sacred, and as you keep walking, more coincidences will happen, more divine disruptions, more sudden shifts, more moments that stop you in your tracks with that knowing this is bigger than it looks. So pay attention. Listen closely. Let your spirit lead. You are not here to explain every move. You are here to embody alignment. And the more you trust it, the more heaven will confirm it. Let the signs be your roadmap. Let peace be your compass. Let discernment be your voice of reason. Let silence be your strength. You are walking into a season of undeniable alignment, where delays become setups, where missteps become miracles, and where your obedience becomes the reason heaven opens doors no man can shut. You are not missing anything. You are not behind. You are in divine timing. So breathe, release the doubt, and take the next step in full confidence. Because you didn't imagine last week's moment. It imagined you. It was designed around you. It was an echo of your calling, a reflection of your light, a portal made visible just long enough for your soul to recognize it. And now that you've recognized it, you've awakened to it. From this moment forward, you will no longer doubt the signs. You will no longer dismiss the shifts. You will no longer shrink your insight to make others comfortable. You are walking in your full, chosen, divine authority. This is your season of clarity, confirmation, and calling. So rise up, chosen one. You were born for this, and heaven has already made room. Chosen one, exhale. Let the weight fall off your shoulders. Let the tension leave your chest. You've been carrying so much uncertainty, questioning yourself in silence, holding back your tears while the world demanded your strength. But now, you know. You were never lost. You were being led. Every delay, every disruption, every so-called coincidence was heaven reaching down, rearranging time and space for your good. You are not just seen, you are guided. Not just chosen, you are protected. You are not too late. You are right on time. The path may have felt strange. The signs may have seemed cryptic. But now, your spirit knows what your mind couldn't explain. You are in alignment. You are in motion. And you are not walking alone. There are angels surrounding you. There is purpose unfolding through you. there is light radiating from you. And there is no force in this world or the next that can stop what God has ordained. So hold your head high. Speak your truth. Move with clarity. Stand in your anointing, because the shift is here and you are ready. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button, like the video, drop a comment below, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Let this be the confirmation they've been waiting for too. May your steps be ordered. May your path be clear. May your discernment be sharp. May your light never dim. And above all, God bless you.